Well, hello glue troopers and welcome back to the Tarbus. And I got some rigging done on the Felix tow today as planned. And as is often the case, problems cropped up that you don't expect. One of them is that because this is so big and it has some flex in it, when you pick it up, it wants to twist. And I had one of the struts that popped out and another one that, actually two of them, one on the wing and one on the engine, that there were minor fixes, but as you would start adjusting the tension on the lines, other ones would start to get, or you would try to remount the strut, you start tugging on things, and this is literally one of those cases where everything is connected to everything else. So if you make adjustment here over on the other side of the airplane, you might get some slack in a line or something. So once I get this thing rigged, I'm still gonna have to go through with the heat and taut up some of the lines. Although I think in a lot of cases, I've tauted them about as much as I can. It's getting a little tougher now that it's real easy to damage the rigging you've already put in because you have to keep reaching through it. And by the way, there's not just the strut bracing rigging, but when I'm done with that, the control cables are exterior. So there's gonna be a lot of control cables here in the tail and underneath the wings going out to the ailerons, as well as those on top for the those big, I don't even know what you call them, those sections of wing that stick up from the top. I don't know if they're strut bracing or if they're supposed to be aerodynamic in function. I think they're just brackets for the strut bracing, but they did have canvas over them, which made them additional surface. And also there's going to be some wiring underneath, external wiring for the bomb releases. So the long way to go, but it's starting to look like an airplane. It's starting to look like a World War I airplane with the rigging. The port side, the left side, is pretty much done with the basic rigging. I still have to do the wing tip because there's a whole bunch of rigging right up here under the upper wing tips down to the struts. And it's just a long way still to go, but I hope to get it finished on the set of days off. And that is where we're at with that. Definitely had my set of trials and tribulations with it today, and it's only going to get trickier as we get further down the pike. But hey, that's the nature of building a World War I airplane. For little breaks, I started fixing up the Albatross, got it kind of straightened out. I did get started on that SE5 that Mark from Montana sent me. I didn't get a chance to work on the lag yet today. I actually should probably just go ahead and finish that off tomorrow. It's mostly done. Just got to paint the cockpit framing and finish putting the decals on it and paint the propeller and spinner. I'm planning to put in the check markings with the check resistance. And yes, there was actually a Resistance Air Force. That's a story into its own right. So that's where we sit on those. Now, about the artwork, a lot of folks have been saying, and Mike had already told me to use UV protected glass, keep the painting out of direct sunlight, although the UV glass would protect it, and mainly keep it dry. All taken care of. It's where it's at in the shelf is in an inner part of the house. It gets zero direct sunlight. I primarily put it in that frame just to make sure under no circumstances any moisture get to it. It's climate controlled. And there might be more on that later, but I'll talk about that later. I will probably go ahead and acquire one of the old SE5s, even though it's probably the exact same kit Mark just sent me that just has that actual box art on it. And a couple of you guys have sent me links to people that have it, to hobby shops and stuff. With everything that's going on, I just haven't had a chance to get around to it. I'll probably check out Dean's or one of those other places and just go ahead and order one. The fit on the SE5, it's actually probably a little bit more detailed in some ways than the Airfix kits, but one of the things that's going to make it a little tricky is that it actually, off the fuselage of the wing, it has 4 independent Cabane struts, where in the Albatross, Airfix made the Cabane struts, which are a Z pattern, or an N pattern, whatever you want to call it. They reach one piece, so that makes it a whole lot easier to mount the thing. But that option wasn't really available in the SE5 because it didn't have the diagonal. So we're going to have 4 independent Cabane struts, and I have always found those Cabane struts to be often the trickiest part of a model build, with the exception of the Gulf Hawk, where they actually went to the trouble of molding the Cabane struts already molded onto the top piece of cowling that sat down. It had to be the easiest one. That's probably the easiest biplane I've ever built, was that Gulf Hawk, as far as the biplane aspect went, because of that. And they also had little hooks in place so to make it easier to rig the thing. So it was, but it's 1/32 scale, which helped a lot. But but now that I'm here in the tar bus where I've got my little vise and everything, I hold things in places. I'll try to rig the SE5. I'll probably use Easy Line, which, speaking of which, I'm probably gonna have to order some because I'm just about out. And that is really where we're at with all of that. I had, because a lot of you guys really enjoyed talking about the World War I stuff, I got a lot of positive comments on that, and I had thought about, since we're doing all this, about getting into a series on World War I aircraft, but I've still got a lot to do with the Air Race series, which isn't really a terminal series. It'll just kind of go as long as people are interested. There's so much in that field. I need to do Waddell Williams and Jimmy Waddell and all the others I've talked about, Doug Davis, and I've got the information. It's just, so many hours in a day, and you have to do other things. But there is just so much cool stuff. When I was driving home last night from work, I was chatting with a friend of mine, and I was telling him about the information I've learned from when I talked to Brad Leisure about the box art that he did and the life of a box art artist, which are, of course, these people are commercial illustrators, and Jack Linwood and some of the others that I've learned, and Roy Cross and some others. It's like, it's a very, each guy has a very different story. And of course, I've already done the bios on some of these folks, but some back in the heyday of models, there were actual art departments at every major kit model company, and it was possible to actually have a real job, a real paying job, 9-to-5 job, doing that artwork. But for the most part, the art's done on a contract basis. But a lot of these guys, like Jack Linwood, still had regular day jobs as illustrators. I think Mike said, I believe Jack worked for North American, but he actually eventually did. I think Revell actually did hire him away full time. But that, of course, is back when all these new models are coming out. They had to keep doing this stuff, and those days are sadly gone. And now, but I'm glad to see that box art is still being done, and excellent box art is still being done. The upside is that a lot of times, especially with these newer molds, the model that's on the inside is a lot better. So, yeah, it's a shame that every kid isn't out there building models. I think they're missing out. But at least for those of us who still do, the world may have gotten smaller, but in a lot of ways it's gotten better. So there's that. And as Malcolm used to say on Firefly, that ain't nothing. So guys, that's pretty much all I have for today. I will talk at you later. Hope you guys are having a wonderful evening, and model on.